Joining us now with reaction is Republican presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy. Vivek, it's so nice to be with you, and I'm very partial to people who are known for their first name only. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
So seriously speaking, you know, eye on the prize. Joe Biden is the president. I tell people all the time, it's very difficult to dislodge a sitting president. And so I take seriously that we have to go beyond showing the obvious mental and physical deficits of this man and really hit him hard on policy to dislodge him from the presidency. But Vivek, if he is not going to sort of show up the week that he announces his reelection campaign, how do you advise and how are you trying to smoke him out?
Well, look, he's A, not showing up for the job that he's in. B, he's not showing up in the job that he's signing up for the reelection campaign in the form of debates. But I think it all makes sense, Kellyanne, when you see that Joe Biden's not really the one running for president. It is the managerial class that conveniently puts him up as their puppet. And against that backdrop, some of his cognitive deficits, that's not a bug, it is a feature. And when you see it that way, I think what I'm going to go after him on is even more than the policy, the fact that he's not even the person running the government, okay? That managerial bureaucracy actually controls the president of the United States. And whether you're Democrat or Republican, you should want to live in a country where the people who we elect to run the government are the ones who actually run the government. Same thing goes for the Democratic National Committee. That's why they're hiding him from RFK or from Marianne Williamson. But I think it represents the essence of what's actually going on, Kellyanne, is this is the deep state on steroids. It's the managerial class, even within the Democratic Party. That's why they're shielding him.
It's very clear that they're always trying to cling to power. And you mentioned RFK Jr. and Marianne Williamson. I'm really struck by their ascent in the polls pretty rapidly. They account for about a third right now of all Democratic primary voters, which is pretty remarkable. And they're not going to get a chance, it sounds, to debate Joe Biden for that nomination. I mean, you go back 8 years ago, and 4 years ago, Donald Trump was being assailed by people who are 1%, 2%. One guy was an asterisk, and the New York Times was obsessed with covering his campaign every other page. These people they've broken a threshold that really has gained them their rightful place on a debate stage. But as you know, they're afraid to debate Biden. They're actually afraid to have him show up. But Vivek, let me ask you a question about Joe Biden's position, even in his own party. A majority of Democrats don't want him to run. It's very clear that he is running. He announced his reelection. He announced it very differently than you did. He put out a video where he didn't have a positive, optimistic view of America. He didn't brag about his own accomplishments. He didn't give a forward-looking hope and change, to coin a phrase from President Obama, kind of message. But I want to ask you, what does it tell you about the Democratic Party right now that A, Joe Biden is its leader, and B, they're afraid to have people debate him for the nomination? It seems very anti-competitive, anti-democratic.
Well, it is for a Democratic Party that preaches about our democracy. It's not a very democratic thing to do, to hide from debate. This is why the Republican Party can lead the way in being better. Kellyanne, I think that this is our moment as a Republican Party to say that we are the party of free speech and open debate. We embrace that because that's what our founding culture as a country was based on. And when I look at the criticisms that Marianne Williamson and RFK are leveling against Biden, to me, the dividing line in this country right now isn't even between Democrats and Republicans. It is between the managerial class in this country and the everyday citizen. And when you view it that way, I think it makes a lot more sense that Biden is representative of the managerial class in this country. But I think free speech and open debate, the Democratic Party would be better off. They're spitting in the face of their own base by saying that they're not even going to give them the opportunity to challenge the guy who's in charge. This is an opportunity for the GOP. We can practice what we preach. I intend to be on that debate stage. So I tell people to go to Vivek2024.com, join the movement. That's going to make our party better, our movement better, and our country better. And I think it's going to be the formula for a landslide election for Republicans if we practice what we preach.
You were complimented today on Truth Social by former President Trump. He noted your position in the polls. Clearly, right now you're clearing that 1% threshold that's been put forth for the debates. So let me ask you, it's a year and a half only, 18 short months from the next presidential election. Bring us into your administration. Name a couple of people who would be in your cabinet, your senior staff.
Well, we're evaluating who we're going to put. It's going to be a combination of people who come from outside of government. I do think we need some fresh blood, but also some people who have seen how you take on the administrative bureaucracy and the deep state. I'm focused on day one executive orders, Kellyanne, not the things that I want to drive through Congress. I think that's a lot of presidents make a lot of the mistakes that time trying to go through Congress. I want to focus on rescinding affirmative action, which you can do by executive order, because Lyndon Johnson did it by executive order. I want to focus on shutting down agencies like the Department of Education that should have never existed. Executive orders to actually roll back any mandate to report carbon emissions. That's how you unlock the economy. And so one of the things I'm focused on is actually what can a president do without asking anybody for permission and asking anybody for forgiveness. And that way, Congress is designed to move slowly. We'll get to that later. But the first 3 months of my administration are going to be all about executive power, constitutionally scoped, putting the military on the southern border to secure the border. Those are the kinds of things the U.S. president can do, including as commander-in-chief. And that's where my focus is, Kellyanne.
Well, unlike Joe Biden, I think when candidates like you put forth specifics and solutions, you're respecting the brains and the hearts of the voters, and you're giving them a voice and a choice in the process. That's what this is all about. Executive power, of course, we watched President Trump do that on day one. President Biden, of course, on day one, just killed those Keystone Pipeline jobs out of spite. That's what he did. That was his priority. Vivek Ramaswamy, thank you so much for joining me.